Breaking news here on This Just In. Steve Nash out as the Brooklyn Nets head coach. The Nets announced Jacques Vaughn will serve as their interim head coach for Tuesday's game against the Bulls. Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting suspended Celtics coach Ime Udoka could be finalized as the next Nets coach within the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll have more on this story with our NBA insiders coming up in the show. Sit tight. Center of attention, or in this case, a big center trophy winner is here with the answer. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? I'm Max Kellerman. Welcome to This Just In, a fast hour around of the world of sports and how I and some of my friends see it. That is Adrian Wojnarowski. Yeah, you got that right. There's some breaking NBA news. I'm going to be joined by Kendrick Perkins in a second. So Steve Nash is out in Brooklyn as head coach. The Nets announced Jacques Vaughn will serve as their interim head coach for Tuesday's game against the Bulls. Brooklyn is 2-5 on the season, and so let's bring in the man I mentioned who, it would be news if he hadn't broken the news. Adrian Wojnarowski, also Big Perk. There he is. Woj, why is Nash out?
The way this season unraveled, Max, with the 1-5 start, 4 straight losses, and even with the win last night against Indiana, or two nights ago against Indiana, this was a team that started to consider a change really over the weekend. And I think the idea that they've got to get better defensively. And I think certainly from Steve Nash's point of view, I think there was a feeling that he had gone as far as he could go with this group. I think a big part of it is Ben Simmons and the fact that not only is he out against Indiana last night, he's going to miss the Chicago game tonight, but this is certainly a presence that they've not had on the defensive end. They're really at the bottom of the league, certainly in that department, and this is a group that you have seen over and over that does not handle and fight through adversity well, and that's what happened. Certainly the Kyrie Irving situation exasperated everything. But I think for Steve Nash, I think it was really important for him to get off to a good start this season as head coach. When that didn't happen, I think both he and the Nets are ready to move on.
Perk, I want your reaction in a second, but Woj, I want to follow up with one thing. It did seem to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the reporting was, and the appearance was, that Kevin Durant had a lot of influence. The fact that he liked Steve Nash and signed off, and how much influence will KD and or Kyrie have in the next hire, do you think?
Listen, I think Ime Udoka, who had been in Brooklyn as an assistant coach under Steve Nash before he went to Boston, he is in a strong position to be the next Nets head coach. I've been told all along that Boston will allow him to leave for any opportunity, assistant coaching job, head coaching job. I think this process is going to go on for at least a couple of days here. But there's no question, I think Udoka, his presence, his ability on the defensive end, because this team has to get better at that end, and his ability to command respect. There may not be a coach for this team. There may not be a right coach for this group anywhere on this planet, but I think Udoka is somebody who certainly has the respect of the group there. Sean Marks, the team's GM, has a lot of history with Ime Udoka. They were in San Antonio together, and then he was on Steve Nash's staff. So I think that's listen, I think right now Kevin Durant's voice still carries weight. I'm not sure Kyrie Irving's does, but this is a group in Brooklyn right now that is trying to hold this franchise together before the whole thing comes apart. And we may not be far away from that either.
Kendrick Perkins, Big Perk. I thought you could see trouble coming when Kyrie was like, hey, sometimes he'll be the coach, sometimes I'll be the coach. What is your reaction to Steve Nash being fired? Okay, Kendrick Perkins was on a little bit of a delay, but it appears that he's lost audio.
I'm here, Max.
Great.
I'm here, Max. I'm here. So does this surprise y'all, though, right? This move right here was all Kevin Durant, right? When you think about the situation for us in the offseason when he called for Steve Nash's job, we knew that KD didn't want Steve Nash as the head coach. And the Brooklyn Nets, you know what? They made the right decision. Steve Nash is a great person, but he wasn't a good coach. Okay, who do you want to please the most? You want to please Kevin Durant. He's the guy that's locked in under contract. He's the guy that you want to start listening to. He's the guy that actually requested a trade this offseason, but then decided to come back. Okay, so now you're at this point. You need to bring somebody in this locker room that's going to hold your superstars accountable. From Kyrie Irving to Kevin Durant and to even Ben Simmons to a point. Because we all keep looking and saying, oh, Ben Simmons don't have the offensive ability. And that's okay. We can accept that. He's not who he used to be. Or he's not that guy that's going to go out there and get you 15 to 16 points a night. But he is a guy that could be a versatile defender if he's held accountable, if they have the right leader in their locker room and they need to make their next move, their best move by probably going and get Ime Udoka.
So Woj just brought that up, Perk. It does seem to me in the East you have a bunch of talented teams, but the separation is the ones with the good coaches. And, you know, Doc Rivers and the Sixers, we could table that for a second. But when you look at Budenholzer, when you look at Udoka, and whoever's coaching the Celtics, you see, oh, that's a well-coached team, and the Nets never appeared to be. You just mentioned you like the idea of Udoka as the next coach. You think that works for the Nets, Perk?
Well, but what's your definition of working for the Nets, Max? Because if you're talking about a championship, then it's nothing that's going to save this Nets roster. I just don't believe in this team, especially in the Eastern Conference. But when you talk about building some type of culture, yes, I do agree Udoka is the guy for the job. It's not going to happen this year, but maybe in the near future, maybe you could attract some more pieces and now all of a sudden you got that accountability and that respect level. And again, this all comes on the shoulder of Kevin Durant. I don't care what he says or nobody else says. He had part in this, and he spoke on this offseason. Ime Udoka and KD also have a very special, close relationship.
Woj, quickly, because we have to move it along, is that you mentioned KD is still going to have influence here. Is his influence waning, or is it strong as it's ever been in the organization by your lights?
Listen, I think as long as Kevin Durant is here and he hasn't asked for a trade, his voice is going to matter.
Thanks, Woj. Thanks, Perk. Let's take a look at some notable deals over the last 24 hours in the NFL. Let's not forget the NFL trade deadline's under 2 hours away. The Bears are bringing in a new receiver. I don't know if you call him a weapon, but he's a receiver for Justin Fields, the outside threat. Chase Claypool coming over from Pittsburgh in exchange for a second-round pick. Just a little over an hour ago, the Vikings traded for tight end T.J. Hawkinson from Detroit. Kirk Cousins has the fourth worst QBR when targeting tight ends this season in the NFL. And lastly, the big trade yesterday, Roquan Smith heading from Chicago to Baltimore. He cost a second and a fifth-round pick. But is that tough Ravens inside linebacker type guy Baltimore really seems to like? So, Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL insider. RG3, Jeff Saturday. Oh, it's a full house today.
Yeah.
Let's start with you. What are you hearing that could happen in the final couple of hours before the trade deadline?
Look, the biggest player people have their eye on is Bradley Chubb, the edge rusher from Denver, right? He's in the final year of his deal. They've taken calls on him. My understanding is the price to get Bradley Chubb is a first-round pick plus more. And if the Broncos aren't going to get that, again, from what I've been told, they sort of regroup and try and think about signing him to a long-term contract.
Yeah.
So in the next couple of hours, they'll have their answer on where they stand with that. Another big name that's been out there is Brandon Cooks, wide receiver for the Houston Texans. There are teams that have talked to the Texans about him. The Texans would be willing to move him. The problem is he's got an $18 million fully guaranteed salary for 2023, and if you're going to trade for him, you're going to want the Houston Texans to pick up a pretty good chunk of that. And at this point, those conversations haven't moved along to the point where they're doing that, so we'll see what happens with Brandon Cooks. Those are the two big names, and obviously there's some surprises possible in the next couple hours.
Cooks is good. He's on the move every other year.
Yeah,
He's
almost
good.
always for a first-round pick.
Yeah,
like he's been traded twice for first-round picks and once for a second-rounder. So he's valuable, but never valuable enough to stay in one place for very long. Very odd career.
And Nick Chubb is the guy getting the headlines, rushing for all those jokes. But Bradley Chubb is the guy who's at a premium, right? You can't find that many guys who can do what he can do. RG3, what's a move you want to see happen?
Packers, you got to go get Brandon Cooks. We just talked about it. Get on your hands and knees, pray to the dear Lord baby Jesus, get the Texans to pay at least half of his salary in the next year. But that's the guy you need. He's got 6 1,000-yard receiving seasons in 9 seasons with a plethora of different quarterbacks. He's a proven playmaker, and the rest of your division is out there making moves. The Lions are doing trades. The Bears are getting trades. And what are the Packers doing?
Yeah.
We got to just poke them with a stick and say, hey, come on now. You can do it. They need to go get Brandon Cooks. That's going to help their team. 2
NFC North teams have already made trades for pass catchers today.
Yep.
And the Packers aren't one of them.
They need Apollo Creed to come in and give him